The topic of the presentation is cloud computing. Student name Subhash Prasad Tiwari. Student number 1061306. Submission date 18 September 2014. Submitted to University of Southern Queensland. The agenda of today's presentation is scope and historical background of cloud computing, its advantages and disadvantages, infrastructure required, governance, how to govern cloud computing, who are the users of cloud computing. We'll see through the business case for the implementation of cloud computing for our insurance company, and we'll look up on the sensitivity analysis. Finally, we'll come to the conclusion whether to accept or reject the project and what the lesson learned from these presentations and the suitable recommendation for the company. The purpose of this presentation is to implement cloud computing for the company in order to gain the competitive advantage from rivals. In order to pursue the stakeholder to implement new technology, this presentation will be good help. It helps the company to become a market leader in the insurance industry. In order to establish a cordial relation between the clients and the insurer, cloud computing will be a very effective tool. It helps to reduce the cost and increase the benefits of the project. Coming to meaning of the cloud computing. Means, in a simple word, I can say that cloud computing is the practice of using a network of remote servers hosted on the internet to store, manage and process data rather than a local server or the personal computer. In other words, it means storing and accessing data and programs over the internet instead of computer's hard drive. We can say, describe cloud computing in a broader terms, it is a way to increase capacity and add capabilities on the fly without investing in new infrastructure, training new personnel, or licensing new software. The historical background of cloud computing involves a number of phases including grid and utility computing. Cloud is equivalent to internet, and in fact until recently they were recognized to be as similar as the internet, but due to the emergence of private, hybrid and community cloud, the entire scenario has been changed. There are certain risks associated with cloud computing. The privacy and the service level agreement refers to the agreement between the cloud computing vendors and the customer. There is always a privacy issue connected as the server is hosted in a remote area. The second is security and data. We should always consider how the data is going to be stored and secured when outsourcing to the third party. It must cover who has access to the data and the security measure in order to protect the data. Location of data is another important issues, the risks associated. Often the data are stored outside Australia because most of the vendors, they are from the other countries. So before committing, we should investigate where the data should be stored and which privacy law is going to apply for the data, like the laws of the vendor country and Australia may be different, so we should always take into consideration these issues. The legislation and the regulation need to be taken into consideration, which the customer should be aware of the legislation of the Australia, and the vendors should also be aware of both Australia and their home country, that mutually they should take into consideration what are the rules and regulations they need to follow in order to do business. Coming to the advantage, the economies of scale is the first advantage. It means the increasing volume of the productivity with fewer numbers of people. There will be less spending on the technology, globalization of workforce on a cheap, like it will be very cheap, as the whole world will be seen as a global place. So every process and storage of data is reduced, streamlined. The process will be streamlined, which means that in less time and less people, more work can be done. The cost of capital will obviously be reduced, as there is no need to spend big money on hardware, software and licensing fee. The disadvantages are possible downtime, means that the cloud works entirely on internet. So if no internet, no cloud service. So this is always a disadvantage. There are some security issues like privacy issues of the data, and the vendors who are providing the data are may not be liable or would not perform their duties and responsibilities. Example I like to give is NSA snooping scandal, which is recently being a great issue, like Edward Snowden issue. There are few cost issues which are associated, like first time cost. Coming to the infrastructure requirement, there are several infrastructure requirements like heterogeneous system support, service management, dynamic workload and resource management, reliability, availability and security, integration of data center management tool, visibility and reporting, administrator, developer, end user interface. Who is going to govern the cloud computing? Mainly there are two types how the clouds can be governed. One is a selection of hybrid model, like there are public, private and hybrid model. A hybrid model selection will govern how it will govern can sorry how a hybrid model is very important application, as some part of the important application is managed internally and hosted internally. So in selecting a hybrid model, some part can be a public and some part will be a private, so company can distinguish between the private and public, and there is less chance of security threat. Another governance is independent monitoring tool like softwares. There are many softwares like Navios 11, Navios Plus are the mostly used software which monitors the cloud computing. Coming to the cases which are using cloud computing are IBM, Cisco, Netflix, Amazon, eBay. IBM is a pioneer in cloud computing. Cisco, it provides cloud-based services, and it is regarded as one of the most viable vendors. Netflix, it provides on-demand internet streaming media. Amazon and eBay, they sell and buy goods and services through online, and it uses a lot of cloud computing service. Commonwealth Bank is another good example who are using cloud services. Now coming to the business model, there are certain assumptions I have made. The cost of capital is 10%. The tax rate applicable is 33%. It's according to accounting standards of Australia, and the initial investment is 60 million. The company will yield benefits. I have taken for the period of 6 years. What are the benefits the company is gonna get over the period? The benefits are reduce cost of capital, reduce administration costs, minimize licensing costs, reduce operational costs. The total benefits are 36 million. All the values are in millions. 36, 43, 50, 55, 60, 68 respectively. The costs associated are software acquisition, hardware, incremental maintenance, trainings. By deducting benefits with the cost, we get the gross income. We should deduct the depreciation, as I have used the straight line method of depreciation. Like 60 million divided by 6 over the 6-year period, we should accumulate it, means 10 millions over the period. We should deduct depreciation so that we can deduct tax from it, because depreciation is not tax deductible. After deducting tax, I need to add back the depreciation again in order to get the operational cash flow. So the cash flows over the periods are listed here. Now we need to calculate the present value. Capital budgeting techniques is mostly used in order to calculate the financial viability of the project. So net present value refers to the present value of all the future benefits. We need to take a suitable discounting factor, like 10% is given by using a 10% present value interest factor, and by seeing the table we'll get the following values, and after discounting it, the net present value is 21.1513. IRR refers to the internal rate of return, the return at which NPV is 0. When NPV is 0, what is the return the project will yield? It's 18% the project is yielding. The profitability index is referred as the future cash flows divided by the capital investment, which is 1.35. Payback period is the time taken for the project to recover its investment. It is 4.2025. Now the sensitivity, coming to the sensitivity analysis. First, if benefits is reduced by 10%, with the reduced benefits, the company is still yielding a positive NPV. The IRR is 12%, profitability index is 1.1, and payback period is 4.43 years. Sensitivity analysis. Second, if the company incurred one more cost, then what happens to the scenario? The scenario is slightly changed with reduced NPV, reduced IRR, reduced profitability index, and increased payback period. If there is a slightly increase in the benefits, then company will gain a higher NPV, a higher IRR, a higher profitability index, and a reduced payback period. Based on this, we can take a decision Table shows that in the business case NPV is positive, and in all the scenarios NPV is positive. The IRR is greater than the cost of capital, which is 10%. Profitability index is greater than 1. Payback period is more than 4 years it takes for a company to recover its cost. So project is acceptable, and it is good for the company to invest in cloud computing project. And coming to the conclusion, though there are certain limitations, but benefits have outcasted the limitation. Cloud computing could be a game changer and yield future benefits for the company. The business model suggests that it's very good to invest in the project which is financially viable. Company could be benefited in terms of reduced cost of capital and gain of future benefits. So, lesson learned from the cloud computing, the scope of cloud computing and how the company can gain a future benefits, how to overcome a limitation and threats and increase an opportunity and strength. Business model and sensitivity analysis is how it is very much important for the company in order to analyze the different factors which can affect the profitability of the company. The privacy and security issues associated with the cloud computing. Thus, it is recommended for the company to implement cloud computing, as it will yield a reduced cost of capital over the period of time. There is always economies of scale. Good insurer relationship can be maintained. There is always necessity for the company to cope with the current technology and get its utmost benefit. The company can have an extra edge on its competitor. These are the list of references.